Looking into these subjects was because in 1973 I had a UFO encounter which stimulated me to start looking at these particular subjects.
Right.
And strangely enough, it was as I was returning from my confirmation into the church. So initially I started looking into ufology, but then really into the early 90s I began to look at more spiritual side to this.
A mysterious pattern appears overnight in a quiet Wiltshire field. Perfectly symmetrical, impossibly precise, and eerily aligned with upcoming cosmic events. But this isn't just another crop circle. It's linked to magnetic anomalies, ancient prophecies, and even advanced surveillance technology. What if this is more than art or coincidence? What if it's a message, not just to us, but to our machines?
You also actually have anomalies that you won't normally see through, ropes and planks of wood.
Yes.
Where the crop can actually be bent at a 90-degree angle from the node or the knuckle of the crop, actually on the stem of the crop.
Yeah.
Sometimes about a foot off the ground.
In this investigation, we dive into the heart of the 2025 Wiltshire Formation to uncover the science, the symbolism, and the chilling possibility that someone or something is trying to get our attention. The 2025 Wiltshire Formation has sparked renewed interest and debate across scientific, spiritual, and fringe communities alike. At first glance, it's a visually striking pattern, symmetrical and seemingly intentional in design. But beneath its aesthetic surface lies a structure that many researchers believe may be far more than an artistic display in a field. This specific formation is centered around a Celtic knot motif, but with some unusual features that have raised both curiosity and concern. The central design bears a resemblance to a swastika-like shape, which, understandably, can provoke immediate assumptions or emotional reactions. However, historians and anthropologists point out that this symbol has deep roots, stretching back thousands of years, long before it was co-opted in the 20th century. Known as the svastika in ancient Sanskrit, the original version of this symbol was used across numerous cultures, including Hindu, Buddhist, and early European traditions. In these contexts, it represented well-being, harmony, balance, and the movement of the sun, clearly disassociated from its more modern and tragic misuse. Within the 2025 Wiltshire design, this ancient solar symbol is presented within a geometric configuration. It sits perfectly aligned inside a square, and that square is placed within a circle. Two shapes that have long-standing meaning in sacred geometry. In many traditions, the square is said to represent the physical or material world, while the circle stands for the infinite, the eternal, or cosmic consciousness. When you place a square inside a circle, some scholars interpret it as a metaphor for bringing together the earthly and the celestial, or unifying the practical with the spiritual. But the interest in this formation doesn't end with its symbolic content. What really pushed it into a new realm of inquiry were the physical effects documented in the crops themselves. These weren't just stalks of wheat or barley pushed down by planks or mechanical equipment. When studied closely, the plants inside the formation showed changes that have no straightforward explanation. According to laboratory analyses referenced by organizations such as BLT Research Team and others involved in crop circle study, the plants showed evidence of rapid exposure to extremely high temperatures, close to 800 degrees Celsius. To put that into context, that's hot enough to melt aluminium. And yet, despite this intense heat, the plants were not burned or charred. Instead, the heat seems to have been applied so rapidly and so precisely that it only affected internal cellular structures, without damaging the plants externally. One of the most curious observations involved the nodes of the plant stems. The nodes, these are the thicker, joint-like parts of the stalk, were visibly expanded and in some cases even blown outward, as if pressurized from within. In normal growing conditions, or even when the crops are bent mechanically, you wouldn't expect to see this kind of cellular deformation, but in this case, it was consistent across wide sections of the formation. Microscopic examination revealed elongated cells, changes in internal structure, and in some cases even the reorientation of cellulose fibers. Yet, despite these transformations, the crops continued to grow normally in the days and weeks following the event. That part is important because it rules out traditional mechanical flattening, which usually damages the plant's ability to photosynthesize or draw nutrients. In this case, the plants remained viable. Whatever happened to them was extreme, but it wasn't destructive in the conventional sense. Another unusual observation was that these changes happened with no clear sign of physical contact. There were no tractor tracks, footprints, or other signs of entry into the field. The design itself spanned hundreds of feet, and yet when drone footage and on-the-ground surveys were conducted, the surrounding area was untouched. The plants outside the formation remained undisturbed. There were no trails, no equipment left behind, and no signs of recent human presence that could account for the precision of the pattern. Eyewitness reports added more layers to the mystery. Several people from the local area claimed to have seen unusual lights in the sky the night before the formation appeared. One farmer mentioned noticing a soft, pulsing glow above his field at around 3 a.m. No sounds were reported, no helicopters, no engines, and no drones. Just silent orbs of light that hovered and moved in ways that seemed unnatural, before disappearing without a trace. In years past, eyewitness testimonies about crop formations have often been dismissed or questioned, but in recent years, more researchers have begun to consider them in a more systematic way. Some of these sightings have been corroborated by multiple observers, and in some cases even caught on video, though the footage is often grainy or difficult to verify. Still, the consistency of these reports, paired with the unexplained plant changes, suggests that there may be a technological or energetic component to how these formations appear. Thus, at least, there may be a geometric and extra-energetic component. This isn't to say that every crop circle is unexplainable. There have been confirmed hoaxes over the years, with people demonstrating how they can make simple formations using ropes, boards, and surveying tools. But what separates formations like the 2025 Wiltshire example from those known human-made ones are two things: the biological changes to the plants and the lack of any physical entry or creation evidence. Hoaxes leave footprints, time-stamped evidence, and usually fail to create the microscopic changes observed in formations like this one. Independent scientists who have studied genuine crop circles, meaning those without signs of mechanical creation, have often noted measurable shifts in the surrounding electromagnetic environment. Instruments such as magnetometers and EMF meters have shown anomalies inside certain formations, even days after they appear. In some cases, compass needles behaved erratically within the formation boundaries, only to return to normal just outside them. In the Wiltshire case, early measurements by field researchers noted deviations in magnetic readings consistent with other verified formations. These shifts weren't strong enough to interfere with aircraft or mobile devices in a dangerous way, but they were distinct and repeatable. Some scientists have theorized that this might be the result of residual energy left over from whatever process created the formation. At this point, the conversation often turns speculative. Who or what might be responsible? But if we limit ourselves strictly to what's been documented, we can say this: the 2025 Wiltshire Formation features a symbol that has appeared throughout human history, a design that reflects deep mathematical and philosophical ideas, and physical changes to plants that cannot yet be fully explained using current agricultural or mechanical knowledge. Whether it was made by natural phenomena, undisclosed technology, or something else entirely remains an open question. What is clear, however, is that the formation meets a consistent pattern found in other high-complexity crop circles. No damage to the environment beyond the plants themselves, cellular-level changes that suggest rapid energy transfer, and symbolism that connects with a global history of sacred art and geometry. This raises the possibility that these formations are more than just messages or artwork. They may be part of a larger phenomenon, one that blends the physical, the symbolic, and the scientific into something we still don't fully understand. As we continue to gather data, document plant changes, and analyze patterns, each new formation becomes not just a puzzle, but a potential key to understanding how energy, geometry, and biology might interact in ways we have only begun to explore. The connection between crop formations and astronomical events has long been an area of interest for researchers. In the case of the 2025 Wiltshire Formation, the timing of its appearance is particularly notable. It emerged just weeks before a rare planetary alignment that had been anticipated by astronomers. This alignment, involving several major planets forming a relatively straight line across the sky, is not just a visual spectacle. It represents a moment of gravitational and electromagnetic significance on a solar system scale. The design of the Wiltshire Formation seems to reflect this timing in a very deliberate way. The outer edges of the formation form an unbroken looping pattern, reminiscent of ancient Celtic knotwork, with an inner square positioned at the center. Some analysts have interpreted this square as representing Earth, while the knot-like outer structure may symbolize the motion or gravitational influence of the planets as they align. What makes this interpretation intriguing is not just its aesthetic alignment with astronomical symbolism, but its functional potential. Some researchers have proposed that formations like this could be operating as cosmic calendars or timestamps, essentially marking specific astronomical configurations on Earth's surface through geometric representation. If this is the case, the Wiltshire Formation may not simply be a passive artistic expression, but an intentional reference to a moment in time that holds broader significance. Astronomical alignments, particularly those involving multiple planets, have been observed by many cultures throughout history. The Maya, for example, based large portions of their calendar system on such alignments, using them to mark the beginnings and ends of long cycles. The same is true of ancient Mesopotamian, Egyptian, and Indian cultures, all of which attached meaning to the configurations of celestial bodies. What's different in the case of crop formations is the suggestion that these patterns are not only commemorating events, but possibly predicting or responding to them. If a crop formation is indeed a marker for a specific planetary configuration, it raises questions about who or what is creating it, and why. One hypothesis is that such formations could be intended as universal navigation markers. That is, they might use Earth's position in relation to known celestial objects to encode spatial or temporal coordinates that would be understandable to any advanced intelligence, human or otherwise. Because the positions of stars and planets follow predictable patterns, they serve as a kind of universal reference frame. Unlike human languages or regional symbols, astronomical data is accessible and interpretable across different cultures, and potentially even across species. In this context, the Celtic knot may be more than a nod to ancient symbolism. Its endless loops and interwoven structure could be a mathematical representation of cyclical time, or even of gravitational wave patterns. If each loop of the knot represents a planetary orbit, and the intersections represent points of alignment or gravitational influence, the entire pattern could serve as a complex map of planetary movement. The square at the center of the design, which may represent Earth, then becomes a point of reference in this system. a location within a greater celestial map. This map would not need to be navigated in the traditional sense. Rather, it would function as a snapshot of Earth's place in a specific moment, making it useful as a temporal anchor. If intelligent systems, either artificial or biological, are using such markers to track time, events, or changes in Earth's energetic field, then this formation may serve as a form of long-range communication, accessible to those who know how to read it. Of course, these interpretations are largely speculative, but the fact remains that crop formations often show extraordinary precision in their geometry, and that this precision seems to evolve in step with human technological development. That observation has led some researchers to explore the possibility that these designs might not come from an external intelligence alone, but could be co-created by Earth-based systems, particularly artificial intelligence. This theory suggests that as AI systems grow more advanced, they may begin to detect patterns and meanings in crop formations that humans previously missed. Recent breakthroughs in language modeling and symbolic recognition have shown that AI is capable of interpreting ancient writing systems, identifying patterns in large data sets, and drawing connections that would take human researchers years to uncover. If crop formations contain embedded messages, possibly even in binary or mathematical form, then AI may be better suited than humans to detect and decode them. This concept brings about the idea of a co-evolution of intelligence. That is, if an external intelligence is attempting to communicate with Earth, it may be doing so not only through direct contact, but by nudging the development of our own tools to reach a level of interpretive capability. In this model, crop formations act not just as messages, but as training exercises. They present increasingly complex challenges that evolve alongside human technology, guiding us towards a shared method of communication. Supporters of this theory often point to the increasing sophistication of crop circle designs. In the early 1990s, most formations were relatively simple: circles, rings, and basic geometric shapes. But over the years, the complexity has grown rapidly. Today's formations often feature fractal patterns, encoded mathematical constants, and even what appears to be digital information. The progression seems to mirror our own advancement in computational ability, pattern recognition, and information theory. A notable example often cited in this context is the 2001 Chilbolton Formation, which appeared near a radio telescope in Hampshire, England. This formation included what appeared to be a binary message, laid out in a format similar to a 1974 transmission sent from Earth into space, the Arecibo message. Researchers who analyzed the Chilbolton Formation noted similarities in format and structure, leading some to believe it was a direct response to our original broadcast. While this claim is still debated, it introduced a new way of thinking about crop formations, not as isolated events, but as components of an ongoing exchange. Applying this line of thinking to the 2025 Wiltshire Formation, one can ask whether the Celtic knot and square design is meant to be read visually, mathematically, or even energetically. The patterns seem to be operating on several levels at once: visually through ancient symbolism, mathematically through symmetry and proportion, and possibly even physically, if the changes to the crop and surrounding electromagnetic fields are taken into account. This multi-layered structure supports the idea that these formations are more than static images. They may be working as dynamic interfaces, points where multiple systems of understanding intersect. From a scientific point of view, this is similar to the idea of systems biology or network theory, where multiple independent processes converge to produce a complex and coherent effect. Further supporting this idea are the experiences of people who visit these formations. While anecdotal, many individuals report unusual sensations when inside crop circles. Heightened awareness, disorientation, and even vivid dreams afterwards. Some researchers have attempted to quantify these effects using brainwave monitors or environmental sensors. In a few studies, they've observed shifts in local magnetic fields, elevated background radiation, or altered patterns of plant growth weeks after the initial formation appeared. If these effects are real and repeatable, they may represent a new frontier in how information is transmitted, not just through data, but through direct interaction with physical environments. A crop formation, in this view, becomes not just a message but a kind of interface, something that interacts with the body, the mind, and the surrounding landscape simultaneously. What remains uncertain is the source and intent behind these formations. Are they created by natural forces we don't yet understand? By human hands using advanced but undisclosed technology? Or by some form of intelligence beyond current scientific explanation? While no single theory has gained universal acceptance, the convergence of biological anomalies, electromagnetic changes, symbolic coherence, and astronomical timing makes the 2025 Wiltshire Formation particularly significant in the ongoing study of this phenomenon. In the absence of conclusive proof, the best approach may be continued observation and open inquiry. As our tools for measuring, analyzing, and interpreting these patterns continue to evolve, we may find new ways of understanding what's being communicated, or perhaps even who is doing the communicating. For now, the 2025 formation stands as one of the most compelling examples of how geometry, nature, and possibly intelligence can intersect in a way that challenges our current understanding of the world. While much attention is given to the visual and symbolic features of crop formations, what often goes unnoticed are the physical changes that occur within the formations themselves. Over the years, researchers have gathered significant evidence that these sites exhibit measurable anomalies that go beyond what would be expected if the patterns were created through conventional mechanical means. In the case of the 2025 Wiltshire Formation, these anomalies are once again drawing scientific interest. One of the earliest and most consistent findings in crop circle research involves fluctuations in electromagnetic fields. When researchers place electromagnetic field meters or compasses within authentic crop formations, the instruments often behave in strange and unpredictable ways. Compasses spin or deviate from magnetic north, and electromagnetic sensors show spikes or patterns that aren't seen in the surrounding area. These anomalies suggest that the space within the formation is somehow energetically different from the rest of the field. In the 2025 formation, early field measurements revealed compass needle deviations by several degrees when moved through specific areas of the pattern. This wasn't random interference. The fluctuations formed a repeating structure that matched the geometry of the Celtic knot, design laid into the crop. This strongly implies that the design itself isn't just symbolic, but has an energetic counterpart that can be detected and measured using the appropriate instruments. Similar electromagnetic effects have been reported in other formations dating back to the 1990s. Researchers associated with BLT Research, one of the more prominent independent organizations studying crop circle phenomena, have conducted dozens of tests in these areas. Their work has shown that the soil within the formations often has altered crystalline structures, and the crops display changes in cellular structure not easily explained by mechanical compression alone. One of the most striking biological effects involves the nodes of plant stems, the small knuckle-like joints that are critical in plant structure and growth. In genuine formations, these nodes are often elongated, expanded, or even blown open, as if exposed to rapid heating from within. This is not something that occurs when a plant is simply flattened by a board or roller. In controlled experiments, researchers found that these changes could only be reproduced by subjecting plants to very specific and intense bursts of microwave radiation. In the 2025 Wiltshire Formation, initial sampling showed that the plants within the design exhibited similar features. The node elongation was present, and in some cases, the grains from affected stalks had different germination rates compared to control samples taken from outside the formation. These types of biological anomalies suggest that some form of directed energy may be involved in the creation process, one that alters the molecular structure of the plants without killing them outright. This precision in how the plants are affected is a critical part of the mystery. In authentic formations, the crops are usually bent at the base in a clean, flowing motion. They continue to grow in their flattened position, and the plants are not crushed or broken. This is in sharp contrast to known hoaxes, where mechanical methods leave plants broken, trampled, or with irregular patterns of damage. In short, the genuine formations demonstrate a level of care and precision in their creation that is hard to explain using human-made tools. These physical changes extend to the soil as well. In some cases, researchers have documented changes in the magnetic properties of soil samples taken from within crop formations. There have been findings of microscopic particles of magnetite, a naturally occurring iron oxide, arranged in patterns that reflect exposure to high-energy electromagnetic fields. The presence and alignment of these particles could suggest that the area was briefly subjected to a strong magnetic pulse during the formation's creation. The possibility that directed energy is involved opens up a new line of investigation into how these patterns are actually formed. If they're not being pressed into the fields mechanically, what kind of technology could be bending stalks, altering node structures, and subtly modifying the soil and magnetic environment? Some have suggested the use of microwave or ultrasound technology. Microwaves can rapidly heat water within plant stems, causing internal pressure to build up and bend the stalks without burning or killing the plant. Experiments conducted by researchers such as Dr. Elcho Hazelhoff have demonstrated that this type of effect can be replicated in laboratory conditions using focused microwave bursts. But replicating this effect over hundreds of square meters in a precise and symmetrical pattern would require a level of technical sophistication beyond what is currently available in portable human-operated equipment. Others propose that the patterns may be formed through the application of scalar waves, hypothetical forms of energy that interact with the fabric of space and time at a quantum level. While scalar energy remains a controversial and largely theoretical concept in mainstream physics, it continues to attract interest in fringe scientific communities. The idea is that such waves could interact with biological and physical matter in ways that leave subtle but measurable changes, including shifts in magnetic fields, changes in plant growth, and even effects on human consciousness. The potential interaction with consciousness is another dimension of these formations that's difficult to quantify but widely reported. Visitors to crop formations often describe strange sensations, a sense of calm, clarity, or altered awareness while standing inside the design. These experiences are reported by people from a wide range of backgrounds, including skeptics, scientists, and those with no prior belief in paranormal phenomena. In some cases, the effects last hours or even days, with individuals reporting unusual dreams, increased intuition, or a sense of having received some kind of message or insight. This consciousness effect might be dismissed as psychological suggestion, but there is some evidence that these experiences correspond to measurable changes in brain activity. In a handful of small studies, EEG, electroencephalogram, readings have shown shifts toward alpha and theta brainwave patterns. In people standing inside crop formations, These states are commonly associated with deep relaxation, meditation, and creative thought. If the designs are capable of affecting brain wave activity, that would suggest a form of communication operating not through words or images but through direct interaction with human consciousness. This is a concept that overlaps with ancient traditions, where sacred geometric patterns were used to facilitate altered states of awareness or spiritual insight. Mandalas, labyrinths, and other geometric symbols have been used for centuries in spiritual practices, often based on the idea that specific shapes resonate with the mind and body in ways we don't fully understand. What's especially curious is that the formation at Wiltshire in 2025 seems to combine both ancient symbolic resonance and modern geometric precision. The Celtic knot at the heart of the design is a shape known for its spiritual associations in various traditions, symbolizing eternal life, interconnectedness, and the looping cycles of existence. But when analyzed using modern software, the knot also demonstrates mathematical relationships, ratios, symmetries, and angles that align with astronomical patterns and harmonic resonance. If this blend of symbolism and scientific accuracy is intentional, then it could indicate an attempt to bridge the gap between ancient wisdom and modern understanding. That is, the formation might be speaking in multiple languages at once: spiritual, mathematical, biological, and environmental. Such a communication approach would ensure that it is accessible to a wide range of observers, whether their orientation is towards science, symbolism, or spiritual interpretation. It's also important to consider that not all crop formations exhibit these anomalies. Many simple or sloppily executed patterns turn out to be the work of pranksters or artists. But in the more complex and symmetrical designs, especially those appearing in short time frames or without any clear evidence of human involvement, the presence of these biological and electromagnetic changes is a recurring theme. The 2025 Wiltshire Formation fits this profile and has already become a focus of study for researchers trying to determine the nature and purpose behind these anomalies. Ultimately, the physical changes observed in and around crop formations like this one challenge the assumption that these are merely visual designs. The evidence points to a multi-layered phenomenon, one that affects plant biology, local magnetic fields, soil composition, and possibly even human consciousness. If these effects are indeed caused by a form of directed energy, then the implications are significant. It would suggest the existence of a technology capable of precise, large-scale manipulation of matter without physical contact. Whether this technology originates from human sources, natural processes we do not yet understand, or an external intelligence remains an open question. But what is increasingly clear is that these formations are more than just artwork or hoax. They are interacting with the world around them, and with us, in complex and sometimes measurable ways. As more data is collected and analyzed from the 2025 Wiltshire Formation, we may be one step closer to understanding not just how these designs are made, but why they continue to appear with increasing frequency and sophistication. The 2025 Wiltshire Formation has drawn attention not only for its geometry and measurable physical anomalies, but also for the striking resemblance between its design and specific extraterrestrial landscapes. Some planetary geologists and astronomers have noticed that parts of the formation closely mirror the layout of certain crater formations found on the Moon and Mars. These are not vague or loosely associated patterns. The proportions and relative placements of circular elements in the crop formation appeared to match known topographical arrangements in outer space with an unexpected level of precision. What makes this comparison particularly interesting is that several of the crater clusters that resemble the design were not known to the public before the age of satellite imaging. High-resolution data from orbiting probes, such as NASA's Lunar Reconnaissance Orbiter or ESA's Mars Express, have only become widely available in the past 2 decades. For this reason, some researchers argue that if the Wiltshire Formation is indeed imitating these celestial surface maps, the source of that knowledge would need access to advanced space imagery, raising further questions about how and why the crop pattern was created. If the similarities to crater formations on the Moon or Mars are not coincidental, the purpose might be navigational. There are theories suggesting that some crop formations could function as star maps or cosmic signposts, designed to assist navigation either across space or through higher dimensions. Such formations may use the geometry of known celestial landmarks as universal reference points. Advanced intelligences capable of space travel might use crater arrangements or star configurations the way we use GPS coordinates, enabling orientation in vast regions of space where traditional navigation methods fail. The Celtic knot at the center of the 2025 formation has been interpreted by some as more than just an artistic symbol. The endless loops, interwoven with a central square, may be encoding specific pathways or routes, perhaps even indicating energy flows or dimensional connections. The square could symbolize Earth, fixed in place, while the knot represents trajectories extending beyond the physical plane. Whether or not one accepts this interpretation, it reflects a broader idea that crop formations might not simply be pictures, but working models, representations of real, functional concepts intended for advanced navigation or spatial awareness. Further supporting this idea is the increasing appearance of crop formations in areas beyond traditional cereal fields. While southern England remains the most well-known hotspot, with its historical ties to other ancient structures like Stonehenge and Avebury, formations have been reported in over 40 countries. These include Canada, Japan, Germany, Brazil, and Australia, and even more remote and less monitored areas. In some cases, the patterns have not appeared in wheat or barley, but in alternative environments such as dry desert sand, forest clearings, or grassy meadows. One example, frequently cited by researchers, involved a formation that appeared in the desert terrain of Nevada, where there was no vegetation to flatten. Instead, the design was composed of shifted sand, with no traceable footsteps or vehicle tracks around it. In other cases, like in remote areas of Russia and Argentina, patterns have appeared in grasslands, too dense for mechanical flattening. Some of the most puzzling reports involve wooded areas where trees and underbrush have been gently bent or rearranged into geometric layouts, suggesting a type of force or technology that can affect a range of natural materials without damaging them. The implications of this are important. If crop formations, or similar ground-based designs, can appear in such varied environments, then their creation likely does not rely on mechanical tools like boards or planks. A more plausible explanation might involve some form of energy-based system that can target specific areas of a field or forest and influence the physical arrangement of matter. The consistency of the geometry, even in terrains where human construction would be impractical, adds weight to the argument that something beyond conventional human effort is at work. An essential part of this discussion relates to the aerial phenomena observed in connection with crop formations. Over the decades, there have been hundreds of documented sightings of strange lights, orbs, and unidentified craft hovering over or near fields shortly before or after a pattern appears. These sightings have been reported by locals, farmers, tourists, and even military personnel. What's particularly compelling is that some of these incidents have been captured on video, offering visual evidence that has been scrutinized frame by frame. In the 2025 Wiltshire Formation case, multiple witnesses reported seeing spherical objects moving in unusual ways above the field in the days leading up to the pattern's appearance. These spheres, sometimes described as white or metallic, displayed controlled movements that didn't match the flight patterns of drones, birds, or weather balloons. In at least one instance, a visitor recorded video showing one of these objects hovering above the center of the formation, then moving along a path that mirrored the loops of the Celtic knot. When analyzed more closely, these objects appear to have a core surrounded by radiating fibers or filaments. This structure bears a resemblance to a type of sensor technology known as fiber Bragg grating, which is used by space agencies, including NASA, to measure changes in electromagnetic fields, temperature, and radiation in challenging environments. These fiber optic sensors are lightweight, immune to electromagnetic interference, and capable of operating with high precision, making them ideal for use on spacecraft and satellites. The similarity between these observed orbs and aerospace-grade sensor equipment has led some researchers to propose that these spheres might be surveillance or monitoring devices. Rather than being the creators of the formation, they could be tools used to scan or study the energy patterns, biological effects, or electromagnetic changes that occur as a result of the design. In other words, the creation process might be separate from the monitoring process, but both are potentially connected to the same larger intelligence. If this is true, it adds another layer to the crop formation phenomenon. The designs themselves might not be the final product, but part of an ongoing research or testing protocol. The formations are laid out, then monitored in detail to observe their effects on the surrounding environment. This would explain the presence of advanced sensor-like devices and the timing of their appearance in relation to the formation. It would also explain the consistent attention these areas receive in terms of electromagnetic and magnetic field measurements. The data gathered from these observations could be used for many purposes. One theory is that the formations are testing the interaction between geometric patterns and Earth's geomagnetic field. Another idea is that they are designed to interact with human consciousness and monitor the resulting neurological or psychological responses, given the large number of reports of unusual sensations, vivid dreams, or mental clarity experienced by visitors to these sites. It is not unreasonable to consider that human observers are an intended part of the equation. The presence of advanced surveillance technology, if verified, would indicate a high level of interest in both the immediate physical effects and the broader environmental impacts of these designs. This could be part of a long-term study or communication strategy aimed at slowly acclimating humans to new forms of technology or new understandings of geometry, energy, and consciousness. Alternatively, the data could be used to assess whether Earth itself is being affected by these formations in ways that are not yet fully understood. Taken together, these observations present a coherent picture of the Wiltshire Formation and others like it. We are potentially looking at a process that involves not only the creation of a complex geometric pattern, but also a monitoring and feedback loop that measures how these patterns interact with different forms of matter, energy, and life. Whether this process is being directed by an external intelligence, an artificial system, or an undiscovered natural force is still unknown. What is clear is that the traditional explanation of crop circles as simple hoaxes or artistic expressions does not account for the full range of phenomena observed. When crop patterns show correlations with planetary topography, demonstrate biological changes in plants, and are accompanied by sightings of surveillance-like devices, the mystery becomes far more complex. It suggests that these events are part of a larger system, one that integrates multiple disciplines, from astronomy to biology, from energy science to human consciousness. At the time when our understanding of the universe is rapidly expanding through new discoveries in physics, astronomy, and artificial intelligence, the crop formation phenomenon may represent a convergence point. It challenges us to look beyond surface appearances and to consider whether the designs appearing in our fields are simply patterns or part of a much larger conversation that is still unfolding. As investigations into the 2025 Wiltshire Formation continue, it stands as one of the most compelling examples yet of a mystery that invites deeper thought, careful measurement, and open-minded inquiry.